Hello and welcome along to React NativeScript for React Native developers. I'd like to introduce you to the kind of things that NativeScript can do and the shape of my library, React NativeScript, which forms a familiar React wrapper around it. So let's see what we have here. We have a Hello World app, which consists of a flexbox layout, which organizes two things, a label and a button. Now these components will be unfamiliar for a React Native dev. You're obviously going to be more used to the ideas of views and texts. In React Native, you import UI components from the React Native library. But in React NativeScript, what I've decided to do is make all the core components available as JSX intrinsic elements, which means you don't have to do any imports. It's quite nice. So we have things like flexbox layouts. Now, actually, let's go into layouts. NativeScript organizes views using dedicated layout bases. These include flexbox layout, grid layout, stack layout, dock layout. I think I got them all. Oh, there's also absolute layout. And within these layout bases, you can have any number of child components. So in our case, we've got a label and a button. Now, in React Native, you would have a all singing, all dancing text component, which handles all forms of text, whether it's editable or not editable. Yeah, you know, it works. But in NativeScript, we've got labels, text views, text fields. All of these are very much more dedicated wrappers around the underlying native components, which is where we get into native components. So label is a wrapper around, in the iOS case, UI label. Buttons are a wrapper around UI button. And you have many more components like this, and each one of them is wrapping a native component. We can get at those native components and we can do native things with them. But first, let's explain what kind of native things we can do. Now, in NativeScript, you have full access to the entire platform's SDK. You can just access it all from JavaScript because you have bindings to everything. NativeScript runs on the UI thread, so you don't have to do this asynchronous dance or message passing or anything like that. So I think just showing would be actually a good way forward here. So let me show you how you can make a UI view directly in JavaScript. So we just do UI view.alloc. Just wait for TypeScript to catch up in it, and you can see we can do all the usual Objective-C initialization methods. We can do those ones, but let's just do regular. Oh, well, fine, we got init with frame. Let's just get init, and now we have a UI view instance, and we can do things with it. We can call all those properties such as subviews. We can find out what the frame is. We can even do things like adding other subviews. I think that's pretty crazy. So you can actually you can instantiate a native object on the JavaScript side. You can hold on to that reference and you can do things to it as long as you like, and then throw away a reference and it gets garbage collected or reference swept. I don't know what the term is. Anyway, it's all very clever. Now, you wouldn't normally be doing direct UI manipulation on these things, although there are some situations where you might like to, but the option's there. More likely, you just want to get at native APIs such as text-to-speech or making a phone call, and I think we'll try to do some of those things from now. So, off screen, I have prepared a few code snippets. Accelerometer is a nice one. So, we have, let's see, is it all in view? Yes, okay. So let's get the accelerometer data natively. How will we do that? It actually only involves very little native code at all. You set up a CM motion manager, you allocate it, you initialize it. Now you have your instance of the CM motion manager, as you can see there. You start accelerometer updates, and then you just poll it and find out what the acceleration is. get your X, Y, Z, and then we can set that into our state. And when we're bored of it, we can stop the updates and clear the interval. We can represent those acceleration values, the X, Y, and Z, in progress bars, or you could just assemble some views together. But we have an actual, I think this is the UI progress view or something of similar name on the iOS side, which is pretty exciting. So let's just see what that looks like. Bang, 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 save, and we wait a while because it takes a while to deploy updates to real devices. It's really quick for simulators though. So you can see Webpack is busy working away, and in fact we don't use Metro, we use Webpack, which is very nice for web developers. You can see we've got our update already, and if I lift up my phone, I've told it to poll every 100 milliseconds, and it is indeed updating every 100 milliseconds with the accelerometer values. I think that's pretty neat. Let's get rid of that. Moving on to the next example. Yes, I know it takes ages. The next example I want to show is grabbing the battery level. Now, unfortunately, you'll see we're at 100% battery level, so it's not going to be very interesting. But just so you know, this is actually one that I wouldn't worry too much about live typing, but anyway, we've got it all pre-written out for us. You just grab your UI device, and I'll just show you what other things are available on it. You'll always see some things beginning with access or accessibility. And a lot of these should be recognizable from the Objective-C runtime. Get your current device, and you can see everything. Yes, accessibility, that's more what I was expecting. And it's just astonishing the number of things that you can see from JavaScript land. And then, as we do here, we would continue to write something like this. We set battery monitoring enabled to true, we check out the battery level, and we set battery monitoring enabled to false again to save power, because you don't always want to be checking the battery. Let's find that battery level. We could represent this on a progress bar, but let's just shove it in here. So we're going to alert. Have we seen the basic alert yet? That's what it looks like. So, no, it's helping too much. Battery level is going to be something like this. Save and wait a while. So it's saying we've successfully synced and we've refreshed the application on the device. And now if I've come in at the right time, if I just press tab me, battery level is 1 because we didn't multiply by 100. It goes between 0 and 1. I am a giddy goat. So that's a fun thing we can do, clearly. Next one, we could dial a number. And you can see we have access to all the next step classes which are available from Foundation. Let's see what kind of things we have access to. NSURL dot. And you'll see all the static methods. So, I mean, you had instance methods, so of course static methods are not a big leap of understanding. We can mix JavaScript and we can mix JavaScript strings with NS strings. It's pretty nice. So what that means is I can, instead of instantiating an NS string and trying to pass an NS string as an input, NativeScript allows you to marshal JavaScript strings directly to NS string, which is something React Native allows as well. So we have our URL. Null is the equivalent of NS null. So if we're able to make a NS URL with that string, and this would actually be of type NS URL, we can then ask the UI application to open that URL, and assuming we're targeting iOS 10 or above, this method is going to exist. See the method signature, because the entire SDK, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, has got TypeScript declarations written for all of it. We have our URL which goes in. We have an NS dictionary, which we can actually do as a empty JavaScript object. I like to keep things explicit, but the marshalling does allow for that. And then what else does it need? You have an optional completion function, but we don't actually need a callback. So let's just get this going. Dial a number. Instead of doing an alert there, we will dial number. And the number's going to be... Is that the right length? We'll see how that goes. Save. Wait a while. Maybe have another drink. But maybe not. Whew. I've got nothing entertaining to fill the gap, that's the thing. Okay, well that says it's successfully synced, but it's not updated yet. So if I tapped it now, it's probably a bit too early, but oh, there we go. Okay, so you can see it's offering to call 01234567889. And we could go on from here, but at this point I've run out of script. So I hope that was an interesting foray into what React Native Script can do, and indeed NativeScript core underneath it, and I hope that gets people interested.